Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to another video. I am back doing some more cards for my Valentine series, although these could be, again, any occasion sorts of cards. So I had all these pieces die cut from previous videos, especially like this otter. I had die cut when I had done the release and review video, so I had all the pieces, so why do it all from scratch again? I wanted to actually use them. And the darker brown portions of this otter, I had originally just quickly colored in with Copic markers. And I wanted to kind of smooth out that look and plus just give him a little more depth and a little more texture. So I'm just using my distress inks and blending them onto the pieces of this little otter. And thankfully I had adhered everything with washi tape, so I could just easily kind of peel up like his little, like this nose area and sponge the ink on. And for this first, like for the darker brown areas, I was using Walnut Stain Distress Ink. I'm using my little Picket Fence Studios life-changing blender brushes that I love. And I grabbed my little, this is just a little craft mat that comes with the glass mat by Tim Holtz and Tonic. I had a lot of people asking me why I haven't been using that in videos. The only reason I haven't been using it in videos is because I had the lights in my little office reflect off it so bad, and I can't move the lights, and my office is really, really small, and so I can't move my desk. So I'm trying to figure out a way to make it work because I love that glass mat. It's the best for crafting on. It's the best for blending. I have it under my desk right now, and I'm trying to figure something out without rewiring the lighting in here. So anyway, I'm just using a little craft mat though, because I can like sponge over my like regular, like that black grid craft mat, but you can't really see the ink on it. And more often than not, I get it everywhere. So I just have my little white craft mat out just to kind of keep things a little more clean, so I'm not getting ink absolutely everywhere. And on the body of that little otter, I inked up vintage photo distress ink. And in between colors, I'm just rubbing the brush onto my microfiber cloth, which is getting very close to needing to be washed because it is getting full of ink. But this is also another reason why I have distress inks and the oxides, because totally different purposes. I wanted regular distress inks because those are a dye ink for this sort of sponging, whereas oxides, you know, they kind of sit on top of the paper more, they're more opaque, you know, apples to oranges. So, and I'll get more into that later on. But I did that sponging on the otter and then adhered down the pieces again. And then for the big picture book Panda, I have the big picture book Hugs wafer die there that I die cut from black and white cardstock. So that'll give him his little body, or big body, whatever. And then just adhere those pieces into place. And for the Panda, obviously I didn't do any sponging or anything because it's just black and white, simple. But I wanted to add a little bit. I thought it'd be really cute to add a little pink to their cheeks. I just thought that'd be a cute touch. Plus it gave me a use for this tiny little blending brush, which I have used in other videos. But I've discovered it's perfect for something like this. So I just blended spun sugar onto the Panda. And then I tried to use spun sugar on the otter just because I was curious to see what would happen. But it's kind of too light because that's craft cardstock. So I pulled out picked raspberry and just kind of tried to keep the sponging kind of light to add the blush to the otter. And then I'm going to do, since I've said this before, once I get going on one thing, I usually like repeat it over and over again because I get kind of obsessed with it. So since I was doing all this ink blending with distress inks, I am going to ink blend on everything. So for my backgrounds, I started with some PEACOCK cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. And I first blended some PEACOCK feathers distress ink around the edges of it. And then I added a little bit of black soot. It just, you know, really deepens it and gives it that something. And then for the second card front, I used Simon's, which one was this? Blue Violet cardstock with Chip Sapphire ink, which is like a match made in heaven. It just, the color, on camera, the color doesn't do it justice. It's just gorgeous. So I blended on the Chip Sapphire, and then same thing, I added that little bit of black soot. My original plan was to do all this sponging and then I was going to add white splatter and almost make them look like, you know, Starry Night backgrounds in a way. But before splattering white, I remembered that I had just showed the big bottle of sheer sparkle spray from Imagine Crafts. I've used the little ones many times in previous videos, and my little one is almost empty, so I ordered the larger bottle because I love this stuff, which I prove right here because one, shake the absolute crap out of it, because all the sparkle, of course, settles to the bottom. So just shake it up really good until there's nothing settled in the bottom anymore. And then I just use my little splatter box. Anything to protect your work surface is going to work. And spray. It just kind of depends. I held it a good foot, more than a foot above my work surface, and then wiped the nozzle off when I was done. But I sprayed these really heavily, let them dry, and like, look at that sparkle. Like, sparkle, sparkle, sparkle for days. Love it. I have sparkle on I still have sparkle on my desk, even though I use the little splatter box. I have sparkle everywhere and I love it. It was so pretty. So did all that. And then to finish these cards, to give them sentiments, I pulled out the CZ Design Love You and Love You 2 wafer dies. These came out last year and I'd used them in a couple videos. Absolutely love these. You don't need like both, like the Love You and Love You 2. I was only going to use the one, and then I was like, oh wait, I have both of them. So since I'm doing 2 cards, why not use both? So I die cut the outlines of those dies with a bright pink cardstock, and then the white cardstock I ran through my little Xyron machine, and then die cut with the actual word dies, and then I adhered them together. And then the hearts I die cut with one of Simon's Nested Hearts wafer dies, and I die cut that from some cotton candy cardstock. And then I originally sponged these with Spun Sugar ink, which at first looks okay, like it looks really good. But this ink is such a light pink, and I had a feeling it would do this, and it did. Once it was fully dry, you can barely see it. So you can see there on the left, that was Spun Sugar, and it wasn't as much depth as I really wanted. So I took worn lipstick and sponged that on instead, and much better. Like, I really liked that too. And like most dye inks, distress inks do smooth out more, especially on color cardstock as they dry. So sometimes they might look a little bit patchy, but then once they're completely dry, it's like, oh, it looks good. So I had done that, and then I had pieces left over from cutting down the card fronts, the Peacock cardstock, and the blue violet cardstock. So I used those to stamp sentiments, and I was using the PUNNY Animals stamp set that also came out a little while ago, that goes with all these like picture book characters. So of course I wanted to use those just to, add to it, because I just think it's cute. And I'm about anything punny, like puns, I think are funny. I like them. So I stamped those sentiments onto those pieces of cardstock with clear embossing ink, used my detail white embossing powder, melted it with my heat tool, and then I used the smallest of the sentiment labels wafer dies to die cut both of these, and then just trimmed off the ends with my paper cutter. So once I have everything stamped, sponged, die cut, everything, it's now time to finally assemble these cards. So I'm using my craft tacky glue to assemble, because it gives me some wiggle room, because I'm usually like moving things around. So I just adhered everything like flat to the cards, but because I had, assembled all these separately, you could totally, pop everything up with foam tape, etc. if you wanted to. I just didn't bother. I just think these were cute enough just as is. So I just adhered everything into place, other than the little strip of sentiment. That I did pop up with foam tape just for that little extra something. So I just used one of my little Doris foam strips for that, because you just got to pop that in place. I don't have to sit and cut down, wider pieces of foam tape for that. So I adhered that in place, did the exact same thing with the second card front. And then for the inside of the cards, I pulled out, what was this set called? Playful Messages stamp set. This was released a while ago. And this is where I should have used oxide ink. I wasn't thinking until I edited the video, and then I was like, why was I not thinking? I know all this. I use my stamp platform, and I'm stamping the sentiments with the same distress inks. Distress inks, the regular ones, are not meant for stamping. I've mentioned this in a lot of videos. They're just not formulated for actual stamping. I've made them work many times when stamping images or sentiments, usually by using like a stamp platform or the Misty, etc. and stamping it multiple times, but they're not meant for it. They're not good at it. If you're getting splotchy results, it's because they're not meant for it. Whereas the oxide inks are perfect for stamping and all that sort of stuff. They just, again, they're not necessarily meant for it, but they work better because the ink sits better. So I should have done that. I should have used the oxide inks on the inside of the cards, but I totally wasn't thinking. But I made them work, so I was happy with it. So I stamped those sentiments on the inside of each of the cards. And then I adhered the card fronts to the card bases. And both these cards are A2 size cards, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I was going to leave them once everything was adhered. It was like this, they're sparkly and they're cute and they have their little critters. But I had to add just a little more bling because it's literally sitting beside me on my pile of Studio Caudia jewels and crystals and stuff that I haven't put away yet. So there's the bag of pink ones. These are the October crystals. And I was like, well, they match the cardstock perfectly. So I sprinkled a few of them on each of these cards. And I'm just going to pick them up with my jewel picker and adhere them into place with that same craft tacky glue. And yeah, once I get these adhered into place, then these cards are finished. So they're sparkly and they got their jewels and these adorable little critters with their pink little cheeks that just... I don't know what well, I've always said I like cutesy everything, and the picture book characters especially, I'm just kind of obsessed with. I just think they're absolutely adorable. So, as always, I will have links below the video to my blog post. I'll have a supply list with links to all the supply used, and links to other videos in the series, etc., etc. You can check that all out in the description box below, as well as in the in the upper right corner of my videos. I link to other related videos and whatnot. So thank you all so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate it. I hope you all have a fabulous day, and I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!